Hi, folks. I'm Peter Lemieux with Rounding Third and BadderSports. I tell baseball stories. So I want to take you back, like I usually do. 1966. What a great year. I was graduating from high school in 1966, so show a little bit of respect here for me. Okay? In 1966, Cooperstown inducted Casey Stengel into their Hall of Fame. Now, a lot of us know of Casey Stengel. They know some things about him. But Casey Stengel has some very interesting side stories, and I'm going to tell you one of them today. But let's start with getting to know the person we called the old professor. Casey Stengel played from 1912 to 1925. Yes, Casey played in the major leagues. Now think about this. This guy played at a time when Babe Ruth was playing. Later on, when he became a manager of the Yankees, he managed Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle. All three great Yankees came into this man's life. However, as a player, Casey only played in the National League. Okay? He retired after 14 years or so with a modest 284 batting average with 60 home runs. He played with the Dodgers, who were then called the Brooklyn Robins, the Pirates, the Phillies, Giants, and Braves. Now, what was unusual about his traveling? It seemed to be a pattern in Casey's life that he would get in an argument with the team about his pay, and he would become a real pain about it. So in each of these cases, the teams got rid of him because of his constant complaining about pay. Now, Casey got a reputation of being a little bit, the word they use, zany. Once, he carried a flashlight onto the field to convince the umpire it was too dark to continue the game. Another time, which is pretty famous, there's pictures of this. While he was playing and having a very horrible day, the fans were booing him, which at the time was called giving him the bird. The next time Casey came up to bat and the fans started booing him, he removed his hat, and under his hat, he had a live bird so he could give the bird back to the fans. So Casey did unusual things. He did have some great moments. In one World Series, he hit a inside the park home run. And so he wasn't, 284. He was a fairly good player, right? However, Casey got famous as a manager. After 1925, he did some minor league managing and went around from teams to teams. He ended up with 1,900 victories in the major leagues over 25 seasons. Most of his losses came with his stints managing the Brooklyn Robins from 34 to 36, Boston from 38 to 43, and of course, the crowning of Casey's losses is when he managed the infant New York Mets, perhaps the worst baseball team in the history of baseball, losing 120 games in their first season. There's a great quote from Warren Spahn, who started his career in Boston under Casey when they were really, really bad and Casey got fired. He then pitched for the Braves his whole career, and at the end, to make some extra money, he signed a one-year contract with the hapless New York Mets. His comment was, "I played for Casey Stengel before and after he was a genius," because he was a loser in those two circumstances. When Casey was in the minor leagues, He ended up having some very good years with the minor league team in Oakland, the Oakland Seals, where he had a young second baseman. He was only 18 or 19 years old, named Billy Martin. And Casey loved Billy Martin. He saw qualities in Billy Martin, and he was right. Billy Martin would do anything to win a game. Fiercely competitive, he did the little difficult things. Never had great statistics, but Billy Martin helped him win games. Also, Billy Martin had a thirst for understanding baseball, and he wanted just to sit next to Casey and learn what Casey knew. And ended up, Billy Martin became a very successful manager. So that's one thing we have. 1949, the Yankees brought up this manager from the Oakland Seals and gave him the 1949 Yankees. Now, whether it was because Casey was a great manager or he happened to live in the most amazing time of New York Yankee baseball, from 1949 to 1960, they were in every single World Series except two, and they won seven of them. Casey every year was winning World Series. Um, he had the joy, in quotes, of managing Joe DiMaggio when he first got there at the end of Joe DiMaggio's career. Joe and Casey did not get along at all. Joe was kind of a reclusive star. Casey was outgoing and a little bizarre in his actions, and it was clear they mutually did not like each other and never talked. But Joe retired, and in came Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, and Billy Martin, and Casey was perfect for these guys. One thing was about after the game discipline. There was none. Casey said, show up tomorrow for the game and win the game. I don't care what you do. And they did really crazy, not very healthy things. And those stories aren't for another day. But what happened to the Yankees is they won. And Casey, as so happens in sports, the manager probably gets too much credit when you win and too much blame when they lose. Well, Casey got the credit. Interestingly enough, he got fired after they won the 1960, pardon me, they lost the 1960 World Series in 7 games to the Pittsburgh Pirates. But what had happened is the owners, they kind of got tired of Casey's craziness and they replaced him. So they said he retired. Well, 2 years later, the infant New York Mets, who were just nothing but horrible, to win the love and affection of New York City, hired Casey Stengel, the ex-Yankee, to be their manager. Later on, they hired Yogi Berra. In some crazy way, that kind of worked because the Mets became more popular than the Yankees, even though they were a much worse team. Their attendance was bigger. Now, just a couple things about Casey so you can appreciate him. Every guy's got quotes. Casey's got great ones. I'm going to share 3 of them with you. This one, son, we'd like to keep you around this season, but we're going to try to win a pennant. Another one, the key to being a good manager is keeping the people who hate me away from those who haven't made their mind up yet. A lot of wisdom there. Finally, Casey told the team once in spring training, all right, everyone line up alphabetically according to your height. Okay, that was Casey. Now to my story. Way back, 1915, Casey was a young man, really wanted to be a professional baseball player. He reported to spring training and everything was going against him. He had typhoid fever and he couldn't play for a month. His weight was down 20 pounds and he was just fearful that before it could even start, his career would be over. There was a little tension between him and the manager. The guy's name was Wilbert Robinson. I don't expect any of you know about Wilbert Robinson. He played in the 1890s for a team called the Orioles, who actually later on became the Yankees. I don't get Wilbert Robertson. He played for 16 years and retired with a 273 batting average. In 1945, Wilbert Robinson was put in the Hall of Fame. I'm saying, what? What's going on here? Well, he managed the Brooklyn Robins from 1914 to 1931. That's a long time to be a manager of one team. And he won 1,399 games with them. So I think Wilbert Robinson is in the Hall of Fame for much the same reason Casey is. They were managers, successful managers, okay? Although Casey was way more successful than Wilbert Robinson. In 1915, Wilbert Robinson bragged that he could catch a ball. He was a catcher. Only now Wilbert Robinson, instead of weighing 170, had gone up to 250. And he had read that somebody caught a ball thrown out of a tall building. And he said, I want to beat that record. So for opening of spring training, Wilbert Robinson hired a stunt pilot by the name of Ruth Law, who herself became famous, but I'm not going to tell that story, to fly over the field before the game. Instead of having someone come and throw out the first pitch, she was going to drop a baseball from 525 feet onto the field where Wilbert, in his catching glove, catcher's mitt, would catch it. So that was the big promotion. It was going to set all kinds of records. He asked that they go up with 2 balls in case on the first one he didn't get it, they'd have a second chance. What Wilbert Robinson didn't know is Casey Stengel had gotten into the plane with Ruth Law. And they did have a baseball. But Casey also brought a grapefruit. So when they flew over the first time and the ball was dropped, Wilbert Robinson kind of staggered around and he missed it. They had to circle around again and they dropped what Mr. Robinson saw was going to be a baseball. Instead, it was a grapefruit. When it hit his mitt, because it was so much bigger and heavier than a baseball, actually knocked him backwards and split open. Robinson, not knowing what had happened, started screaming that he had lost his eyesight. And then, with all the juice on his shirt, he also thought it was blood. And he started screaming that his chest had been ripped open. Well, in the end, they figured out that it was just a grapefruit. And eventually figured out that Casey Stengel was behind that. Do you know that's the reason spring training in Florida is called the Grapefruit League? Or so the myth goes. All because of the craziness of Casey Stengel playing a trick on his manager. So a little taste of why Casey Stengel was so beloved to baseball. While he was a decent player, probably a pretty good manager in some of the things he did in terms of handling people, but he was always wanting to look at things in a different way. That's my story for today. I hope you people enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, make your own comments. Come here, where we honor nostalgia and memories of the greatest sport ever, baseball. I will see you guys next time around. Have a great day.